Greetings and salutations. I'm Roger Farrell. Changing Attitudes is what we call this. Changing Attitudes, segment 12. It has to do with an illness that's out there, pretty prevalent, and it's a serious ailment. So the following starts with my introduction to the term colon cancer. It came about for me at a time when I went to Salt Lake City to meet with a doctor, medical doctor, a professor of Stanton University for mathematics, and I went with one of my partners, Kenneth, and also I met Victor. Victor was a salesman in New York City, and I was going to be selling one of my products. Now we went to a restaurant to eat and talk, and while we were trying to eat our dinner, Victor talked about him having a surgery on his colon. And I had asked, what's a colon? He said, the large intestine. So he had a bad case of colon cancer. And he describes the situation and the operation and 5 feet of intestine being removed. And I noticed the doctor was not looking too happy or well, because he was losing his appetite. And so I asked Victor, I said, can you talk about this subject another time? So that was my introduction to the term, and my first physical meeting with Victor, as well as the doctor, as well as the professor of math. Now, although Victor didn't have anything to do with an invention I was working on, but I did have an invention, and I wanted to take it to a company that dealt with the public at the New York Stock Exchange. And Victor happened to know one of the brothers of the Solomon Brothers company. So he arranged for me to demonstrate this instrument of ours to the brother. The instrument I named was Gnosis Medical Instrument. Gnosis has many meanings, but the one I liked is knowledgeable, because this instrument was really knowledgeable. What I did, I came up with an idea. I knew that if you took a multimeter, that's what you use in electronics to measure voltages. And I know as a young fella in my 20s, if I stuck the multimeter point in one finger and another, I got different measurements. Not high measurements, very low. And then I also read where a doctor in Japan, or inventor, no, I think he was a doctor in Japan, he would use it, hook it up to a finger, do a measurement, and hook it up to another finger and do a measurement, hook it up to a toe and do another measurement. And so did the medical doctor that met me in Salt Lake City, who practiced in Phoenix, Arizona. So anyway, I came up with the thought that by doing one test at a time, the body can start changing, modifying the measurement, because it's getting influenced by time, by comments, and by the action of the different spots. So I thought, can we make one instrument that can hook up to all the acupuncture points on the hands, fingers that is, and on the toes? A person could have all this hookup and stay dressed. They don't have to change out of their street clothes. So what I did is I hired a wizard to make do the hard drive or whatever they call it in a computer. And I hired another fellow that was taking a course in one of the Toronto's universities to do the software, so do the programming. And we ended up making a computer that could not only read all those points, it could print them out, and it could also show it on the screen, on the computer screen. And so it was an impressive instrument, I'll tell you. So a month or two after our Salt Lake City meeting, my partner Kenneth and I met Victor in Philadelphia, and he invited along one of the Solomon brothers, who brought along a fellow who had a medical record that was in the brother's hands. So the brother knew what this fellow he brought along, his history was. And I didn't know, and Vic didn't know, nor did Kenneth. So anyway, we hooked him up to the equipment, and not only did it show exactly what the paper the man was holding showed, it showed more, and also surprised the subject that was being our study, because he said there's things there that he knew about, but nobody else did, and our equipment showed it. So the Solomon Brothers was very, very impressed, and said, let me do get 10 units made, and you'll make us a public company. So that was on a Saturday. No, it wasn't. It took us all day Saturday, Victor, Kenneth, and me, to put the equipment together and set everything up, or most of the day. And on Sunday morning, we did the test display. And then when the Solomon brothers left, Vic and I started disassembling the equipment. And as we proceeded doing this, Victor would swear periodically. and eventually I said, Victor, that colon cancer of yours, that was pretty serious, wasn't it? He said, yes, it was. I said, you nearly died, didn't you? Yes. I said, well, if you don't change your words. And I looked at my partner, Kenneth, and his eyes rolled up saying, oh, here goes Roger. And that's a world of dreams. So I said, if you don't quit what you're saying, you get the cancer again. And he was shocked. He said, I won't get it again. I don't want to get it again. I said, well, I'm sorry to say it, but you will. Why? Because you keep on saying words that are sort of picking on your rectum. He said, what do you mean? You keep on saying so-and-so burns your ass, so-and-so is a pain in the ass, And you could repeat it so many times. Now, Kenneth even now returned his gaze to me and kind of nodded. And Vic said to me, "You mean if I don't say those words anymore, I won't get that cancer again?" I said, "No, you won't. Because you're you're insulting that part of your body. And anybody that does that to any part of their body is going to get a problem in that area. That's the way our mind works. That's the way the body works." So he said, so if I stop using those words, I won't get that cancer. I said, "You can bet your sweet ass you won't." So that is exactly what happens when somebody picks on an area of their body, or their business area, or the people they want to do business with. "Oh, that son of a bitch has come to see me. I don't like him, but I'm going to try to convince him to do this or that for me, or loan me money." You can't do that. That not only does that affect you, it affects the person you're mistreating with your thoughts, because psychically they pick it up. They may not know where they get the idea that you're not being proper or decent with them. They don't know that. But that is the way it works. So the symptom of colon cancer, I've had a lot of help, or I've given a lot of help to people who had it or have it, and they healed themselves by following my instructions. So the mind is very powerful, but the body is also, because the body responds in like. Okay? That's the end of this. Talk to you another time.